The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the SpotTrack.com podcast. I'm Kevin Sylvester, along with Paul Peck. We're from BuffaloSportsPage.com and the founder of SpotTrack.com, Mike Giannetti. Today, we're talking about the Mets' big trade.
He's so happy we can start with a baseball trade.
Yeah, well, maybe. I'm not happy about the trade. Mets' big trade, the future of the Packers now that they've canned the coach, and the contract signed by Nylander for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And what does that mean? What does that mean for the future with big guys like Matthews and Marner coming up for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the salary cap in the NHL? Those are some topics we're going to cover, and probably with
and
some
questions from some of the social media followers as well too. So
I got a question, and I should have tweeted at you, Mike. What the hell are the Mets doing?
Well,
apparently you're not all that excited about this trade, are you?
I'm not super excited. But I do understand it to a certain degree. I've had plenty of conversations here, with friends, family, colleagues, and whatnot, because obviously I'm all in on the Mets, whether they're doing this or not. But here's the deal. I mentioned this a few episodes ago when we've discussed the offseason with a bunch of teams. The Mets are sort of stuck right now, right? They're stuck in cement because they've had 2 to 3 years of really bad free agencies. And maybe it looked good on paper. They certainly overpaid to get a few of these big guys in terms of Cespedes and Todd Frazier and Jay Bruce. And now they're stuck. And obviously the David Wright injury situation puts everything, the payroll in peril just from the get-go. So those are sort of the names that you look at this payroll, and you understand what this new GM had to do. Step one of this process was going to be, we got to get some of these contracts off of our payroll so that we can move forward. I have to say this, if you don't have a Cespedes on this payroll, right, if his gigantic $75 million contract isn't on this payroll, they're probably ripping it down right now. They're probably trading Syndergaard, trading DeGrom, and ripping it down to youth, and starting back into the Houston Astros situation where they're, looking international, looking for draft picks, things like that, and sort of rebuilding from there. Because not only is this move for Cano and a closer aggressive, but this is a team that maybe out of the gate is 4th in their division, right?
Yeah.
They might be ranked, even right now, even after this move, they might be ranked 4th in terms of the preseason in the NL East. We know what the Phillies are about to do. The Braves already got better, and they were probably the favorites. And I think the Nationals are still ahead of them right now. So, and they've done really nothing outside of getting themselves a catcher. So it's aggressive, but it's aggressive maybe with no end game, right? This might be this might just be we
aggressive to be aggressive and make some headlines.
At least what they've done is they've addressed 2 positional needs right out of the gate. Is it the smartest way to do it? No. I mean, they're paying $100 million for Robinson Cano at the back end of his career after a PED suspension. So, I don't think I need to say any more bullet notes there. But they did get a guy who had 57 saves last year.
I went to GNC. I didn't know what I was in there.
Yeah, right?
Anyhow.
There's 10 or 11 things on the Rolodex you could say at any point. They did get a guy who had 50-plus saves last year, and he's under team control for 4 years. If Edwin Diaz works out, for the next 2 to 3 years, you're paying minimal money for a legitimate closer. Not enough can be said about that. That's everything in baseball right now. So if he works out, he's certainly the piece to look at for everything here in terms of the Mets. If he works out, that's going to be somewhat worth it.
Why'd the Mariners do this?
The Mariners did well here.
They want to get rid of Cano's money.
They did well. Yeah, they dumped Cano. Yes, they're taking on Jay Bruce at $26 million over the next 2 years, but Jay Bruce can still play. He's having injury issues, and he can't play. He's not the best defensive outfielder in the world right now. Let's just put it that way. But he's going to play, so
he can DH if they need him to, right?
He can DH, except for they just traded for Carlos Santana, who is probably going to be the full-time DH. So they're collectively, the Seattle moves are a little bit, maybe all the pieces don't fit just yet. I'm pretty sure they're just trying to tank at this point. I really do. They're taking on other people.
They had a really good year last year, though.
They were great.
Did they max out everything they could last year? They didn't get them to the playoffs?
One of the most fun GMs in baseball, though. This DePoto guy. He's sort of like the fantasy guy who, when he loses the first 2 weeks of the year, he just rips his team apart. He's that guy. You know what I mean? Like you can just see he's always sitting on his hands and he's ready to do something. So I get that he's made gigantic moves right out of the gate here. I just think maybe it's going to take some time to sort of meld and get together. There's some positional, issues out there. I'm guessing they still want to move guys like D. Gordon and Kyle Seager. I would guess they don't fit the model going forward. But in terms of this Cano trade,
what about Ichiro and Edgar Martinez though? What are they doing with those guys?
They're watching them go to the Hall of Fame eventually. That's about it. By the way, Edgar Martinez book coming. That's going to be something to look into with all the teammates he's had over the years,
right.
Those fun years. That's he's an underrated guy.
So this is the first big move by the new Mets GM, who is a former agent. So
speaking of, by the way, tidbit, fun fact, guess who he also was a former agent of? Robinson Cano.
There you go.
He signed this $120 million contract.
So I was going to ask you, what's our sense of his role here? There's a shocker.
Here's how the deal went down. All right, I'll make a deal with you, but you maybe signed this guy to this contract. You're taking it back.
That's right.
Don't you think that would have come up somewhere?
It's all.
That's awful. So what's the sense? What's the take on the first moves here by a somewhat out of the box hire at GM?
I get it. He addressed the Jay Bruce and the Anthony Swarzak deals as we can't have these anymore, right? Every team has one of those, at least one of those contracts right now where they're like, we got to get out of this contract. Those were two. He probably wants to move Frazier if he can. He's probably not going to be able to. That's just a 1-year hit for him. But look at he identified there were 5 massive contracts that weren't turning into production on the field. He's gotten rid of 2 of them. Cano's not going to be nothing here. Yes, it's $100 million over 5 years, but even after he came back to the suspension, he hit like 320.
Sure.
I mean, he's not going to bash 50 home runs anymore, especially without cheating.
It's not. Listen, my dislike of it is not next year.
No, it's 3 years from now.
It's even 2 years from now, and I look at the team and I'm like, you're trading maybe the top prospect in the draft last year. Yeah. For a guy they're not going anywhere next year. They don't look like they're going anywhere.
The youth they gave up here is concerning, right? They gave up their number 1 pick last year. They gave up their number 1 pick from 2016. They gave up a flame-throwing pitcher in Bautista who, he has control issues, but that could be something that, especially if like a middle reliever, he becomes something big. So obviously you had to give the get here. But I just think the moral of this story is we've got Jacob deGrom for 1 more year, and we got to go all in here. Right, this is it. This is our Hail Mary. We've already got these guys signed. Right, Cespedes is getting paid $25 million, whether he's hurt or golfing or whatever he's doing.
Right.
So let's just do this. Right. Let's get rid of some of the fat. Let's bring in somebody who maybe we can resurrect a career from Cano and have a 2 to 3 year run where this thing works out. It's questionable across the board. Every move here is questionable. But like I said, the guy to look at this deal is Edwin Diaz. If he's a legitimate closer, if he can mimic what he did last year in Seattle. In the National League, which is even a better role for a closer, if he can do what he did there for the next 2 to 3 years, the Mets are going to have a chance because they may trade Syndergaard, but they still have 3 legitimate starting pitchers. Add Cano to the Cespedeses and the Confortos, and there are some guys who can put together some streaky hitting. I just think they're looking up at the NL East right now, and that's the problem.
But you expect more moves for the Mets.
I don't think a ton. I think maybe Syndergaard gets moved, and maybe that's the way they replenish the youth they just gave up to some degree. Certainly teams have been interested in Syndergaard, for obvious reasons, and the Mets could look to part with him as, they're not going to be able to pay everybody here. So let's get to a point of value for Syndergaard now where we can get maybe a first-round pick or so back. They did give up a lot, though, and that concerns me going forward, like you said, for 2 to 3 years where they may need to pull from their minor league system, and it's going to be somewhat depleted at this point.
All right, speaking of depleted, the Green Bay Packers are a depleted football team, and Mike McCarthy pays the price for some missed kicks, right? I mean, let's face it, some kicks go in.
I don't know. Do you think winning would have solved this?
No,
it feels like
they were, and all the reasons cited by the president, Mark Murphy, for making this move was he basically said he compared it to Andy Reid.
Yeah.
It was time. He had run his course as the Packers, head coach, and that's not to diminish anything that he had done before. And while I'm sure the Aaron Rodgers rift was part of it, I get it. Andy Reid had run his course in Philly, and he moved on to be successful somewhere else. And Mike McCarthy will likely do the same thing. Cleveland wouldn't shock me if that's where he goes as well, too. But it just felt like in the day and age of coaches in sports where You maximize the 4 years or so you get out of them, and then by then people get stale, and it was time. It was time to go, and it certainly accelerated a little bit by some bad decisions that they had made, sticking with some players too long. And if Aaron Rodgers isn't happy, and it didn't appear like he was, that ultimately is, okay, it's time. It's time to make a move.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Winning cures everything. And if they can get to the playoffs, I think that, winning cures things here. He wasn't, Rodgers wasn't happy with Van Pelt, being canned, Alex Van Pelt.
Right.
And, certainly, that started some things. And then getting the money. Listen, McCarthy knew, right? I mean, once Rodgers gets the contract, and even before the contract, the draw is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and Rodgers wasn't happy they got rid of Jordy Nelson, and there were a couple other things. But, again, that's not your job, Aaron. The Jordy Nelson thing he's done nothing in Oakland. So obviously they felt like he had reached the end of his rope, whether Aaron Rodgers liked it or not. And this is a dangerous road to go down when you have a influential star player who thinks he can now be the GM and the coach when he should just be the player, and it's a difficult
Brady
situation.
That way?
Wait, let me get in here. I'm going to disagree with everything you just said.
Go.
Maybe that's the case 15 years ago, but that's not where we are right now. That's not football right now. Football, Brady is the reason to bring this up, and it's not just that the quarterbacks are phenomenal and they should have the respect that they deserve. There's clearly a system that works for quarterback, right? And there was a system for a long time in Green Bay that worked for Aaron Rodgers, and they started to pluck that away. They took it away from him piece by piece, and this year they took away his coach and his star receiver, and they did that in a matter of 2 weeks. And to me, that was just the last straw, right? It's fine in New England because they've proven to Tom Brady that they are conscious enough of the system to be able to replace, right?
Well, they still
so
have
we
his
can
star.
take out X and put in Y.
Well, they still have the guy. It's Gronk.
Maybe, but they're still doing okay, even though Gronk's playing about 11 minutes per season right now.
Gronk's a shell of himself.
It's to me, it's more evolved than that. To me, we know the slot receiver position is. We know the deep threat.
Right.
We know exactly what kind of athletes we need to fit the role because the system is in place. And to me, when they started to break apart the system in Green Bay, and that's coaching in front office.
So why? Why did they do it then?
They did just make a GM change, and it was a big GM change. It went from completely conservative, and we know what we need, and we're not going to overpay for it. And my foot is down on that. To a more youthful, exuberant guy who maybe
aggressive,
maybe a little ego, who put himself above the system and got them in trouble. And we're here. I think this may be the downfall of a front office issue that trickled down, and Aaron Rodgers is sort of the scapegoat for that. And I disagree with that take. I think Aaron Rodgers should be the superstar in this situation because he is the reason the system works, right? And if there's a system that has worked with him for 6 years, why are we going away from it?
Yeah, I think
because we're only going more towards a passing game.
I just think it's dangerous to make Aaron Rodgers your director of player personnel.
But how? How is it dangerous? This guy is
because
a generational
he doesn't necessarily always know that he's clouded by his emotions and his friendships.
I tell you what, I think Rodgers is savvy enough to know what he needs to be successful. And who he wants to throw the football to. And matter of fact, Witten was just talking about this the other night on Monday Night Football, how Ertz and Wentz, how they're best buddies, and he goes how he and Romo had that connection and how they talk about stuff all the time, like, hey, this play will work.
You know how this works. Any office space. You know what I mean? If you're friendly with somebody,
you can gang up and stab people in the back,
sure.
Right?
But just in terms of more football sense, Aaron Rodgers watches these games like we do, the games he's not playing in, and he sees a guy like Josh Gordon who drops into a Patriots offense, and he's just a guy who knows how to sit into his zone, a guy who knows not to go left instead of right. He has a sense for his position and his role, and whether that's been coached him in New England or it's just something he's always known out of college, those are the guys that Aaron Rodgers wants on this team, and he doesn't have them. Jordy Nelson was that guy. Jordy Nelson may be past his prime, but Jordy Nelson knew when to cut off a curl route at the right time, and those are the little things that Aaron Rodgers doesn't have right now. He's got a monster in Devontae Adams. He's got a decent running back in Aaron Jones, But you need 4 more weapons in this
He's
game
got
right
injured
now.
Jimmy Graham.
And Jimmy Graham's not the same guy he used to
Well,
be. So
he broke his thumb, and he's been inconsistent because of age.
The Jimmy Graham signing, and I'll have this in an article soon, the Jimmy Graham signing set that franchise back in 2018. They paid him a 3-year contract with way too much money for a guy who has shown for 5 years, I can't do it still.
Right.
Well, what made anybody think he was going to come here and Aaron Rodgers was going to make him the 2011 Jimmy Graham? It's just not feasible. So that was their big swing this free agency in terms of the offense, and it was a big swing and a miss.
So they did say that Rodgers, they sort of couched it by saying he'll be involved in the process of a new head coach. They didn't say he's going to pick the new head coach, but they'll say he's being involved, and that's obvious and smart. You'd be foolish to not involve him somewhere along the line with a guy that you feel like he's comfortable with. They're not going to. I don't think they're going to let Aaron say, "Who do you want?" Maybe they do.
I'm not going to mention names, but you'll be able to figure this out. So a former NHL GM told, well, screw it. I'm just going to say who it was. All right, because it's ancient history. Darcy Regier, who was when he's GM of the Sabres, and he told me this well after, right? So this wasn't while it was going on, and when he had Drury and Briere, who were co-captains on the team, and they swung a trade to get J.P. Dumont. All right, in to play with Briere. And he just talked about, wow, all right, I've got Dumont to play with Briere. That'll be great. And Drury says to him, well, now you got to go get my guy. He goes, all right, who's your guy? He goes, Mike Greer, college teammate, chemistry. He goes, okay, it took him a year and a half or 2 years to get Greer, and he got Greer for him. And you look what happened.
Yeah.
They were unbelievable together. So they will... GMs will talk to guys about, especially captains, and maybe different in football, but I think status matters. And in this case, the communication's saying, all right, who do you want? Now, hockey, Matt,
but a coach,
Stars
can
wants
you
to.
do it, can you do it with a coach?
But I just want to say, you want to find a guy you can play with. You look at twosomes. You want to play pairs together, and who do you really click with? I click with that guy. I think of Andrew Castles and Jeff. He played here in Buffalo too. Can't think of his last name. But anyways, they were great together, and everybody wondering why wasn't he scoring here in Buffalo? Because he's not playing with Andrew Castles.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, partnerships matter.
Yeah.
Yes,
but with but in a coaching situation,
Jeff Sanderson,
Mike,
by the way.
I see it completely backwards. I see it completely opposite. I see $120 million into Aaron Rodgers, a heck of a lot of wins on his own doing, right? I mean, he is the reason that this offense has clicked. They have not had to deal with this in Green Bay for 30 years. This went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. There was a system there. There was a system there. I don't feel there should be a need to change a system around Aaron Rodgers. So if I'm Coach X coming in for an interview, I think my first question is, I want to talk to Aaron Rodgers, and I want to know what system he needs.
Right.
And if that's a good fit for me, then let's go, right? Because I don't want to leave this on some front office exec who might know a little bit about football and might know a little bit about Aaron Rodgers' system, but not a lot, not enough to make a perfect match. Because that is the only thing that matters right now is something worked, something stopped happening to make it work. So let's get in a guy here who can revive what was working, because this team can't just break it all down. I mean, there's going to be pieces that are going to go for sure. There's going to be cap casualties like we have every year, but this team needs multiple positionals fixed right now. Multiple positions. They need new wide receivers, a younger tight end. They need a couple of offensive linemen. They need anybody who can get to a quarterback, and they need an entire new set of safeties, 2 to 3 safeties. So you're talking 8 legitimate positions that they need draft and free agency. They've been a little bit more aggressive in free agency, but I'm not sure they have the capital and $40 million to really do a ton in terms of major splashes right now. They can't just go out and rebuild this team on the fly for Aaron Rodgers. They need to sort of nitpicky do this, and they need a coach that can come in and revive what worked 2 or 3 years ago.
So you're saying it's going to be someone with a background in Green Bay and a relationship with Aaron Rodgers?
I would think so. I've made notes to myself and in articles past that Alex Van Pelt, his quarterback coach for 4.5 years, should be back in this organization in some capacity. He's working with Andy Dalton right now.
Right.
He's doing the exact same thing he's done with Aaron Rodgers with Andy Dalton. And before Dalton got hurt, the numbers were way up. Dalton was throwing 300 yards, every other week. His numbers were outstanding, even though that offense as a whole wasn't clicking. So Alex Van Pelt clearly has an ability to connect with quarterbacks and make that turn into production on the field, which a lot of guys can't say they can do.
Well, I personally know Alex. I used to work with him. He's an ex-backup quarterback, a great team guy.
Paul, he was a starter in Buffalo.
Yeah, well, that was...
we don't remember that part of his career.
So he's the perfect guy. You're right, because he gets what that quarterback needs and wants and is thinking.
And Paul, you do know him a little bit. He's not a candidate for head coach position, right? I mean, does he have that kind of background?
At this point, after with the McVay success, anybody is a candidate for a head coaching position. What McVay has done is blown out that you need to be this, then you need to be a coordinator for 3 years before we'll think about you as a head coach. Anybody, anybody. Why not? Why wouldn't you think Alex could be the head coach there?
Isn't a guy who works well with Aaron Rodgers and knows exactly what Aaron Rodgers needs on the field the perfect candidate for this Green Bay team?
Yes. I completely agree with you.
And I'm putting Alex Van Pelt at the top of this list.
I think it'd be great.
That'd probably be Rodgers' choice, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Well, so then we'll find out who makes the decision if that's the way it goes.
We will.
So.
Yeah. Alex Van Pelt, I never felt he had an ego.
Correct.
Right.
Because he was a backup he was a backup quarterback. He understood his role for his entire career.
And the amazing thing, here's a guy who was unbelievable in college at Pitt.
Oh, yeah?
He broke all Marino's records.
Man.
And it didn't translate in the National Football League. But he was a backup quarterback, knew his role, had a taste of starting a bit with Buffalo, and went into coaching, which doesn't shock me at all. And why not Alex Van Pelt? Many thought Frank Reich would never, be a head coach material because he's the same thing, no ego, right?
Career backup.
Yes.
Yep.
And aside from maybe not the best week to talk about Frank Reich.
Right. But you know what?
Hey,
Here's
Jacksonville,
the bigger picture. I think as the trend in the NFL for head coaches has moved clearly towards offensive guys who can connect with quarterbacks, we could all sit here and start making a list of backup quarterbacks in the last 10 years that are coaching somewhere and go, those guys are going to be your next head coaches. I think, Kevin, you nailed it. It's what is going to get you hired now because everybody's looking for offense. Everybody's looking for a guy who can either take a quarterback and make him better or take my prize first-round draft pick and help develop him. And frankly, nobody can do that better than a guy who has been a quarterback himself.
And by the way, I just want to go back to GMs asking star players for input on players. I think they have to do that for two reasons. Number one, it helps in player recruitment because everybody knows everybody now. Hey, how is it there, man? I'll tell you what, he asked my input about bringing you in. So they're in tune with the team. And B, it takes all the excuses away from the player. Hey, I got you the guy you wanted.
Yeah.
And you're playing terrible.
Yeah.
So now I'm cutting them. So shut your mouth. We tried it your way, right? If it works, everybody's a genius. If it doesn't work, then you can tell the player
I just think the
quiet
transparency makes sense no matter, right? No matter the reasoning. I mean, these sites exist like mine that show you the free agents, right?
Right.
You can go at any point and see who's going to be available next year, and if you like him or have played with him or know he's worth a damn, go to your coach and tell him we got to get this guy in here next year for a look because I think that would work. It should all exist. I imagine it does in most franchises. I imagine there's some sort of fluid conversation happening. I don't know how much up the flagpole it goes.
Right.
Depends on the ego level of the head coach and the general manager. And trust me, those guys are pretty sizable egos as well, too.
I just think...
depends on clout, I think.
Yes. But I do think, to that, Kevin, the comparisons between this Aaron Rodgers situation and what we've seen from LeBron James for a decade are just starting to get closer and closer.
Yeah,
like these are two
good point.
just monster players. Now, LeBron has a lot more control over a smaller roster, obviously, whether, not to say he has actual control, but he has control. Let's bury that lead.
Well, but here's the difference when it comes to coaching in there. Yeah, I think the play calling and coaching from football aspect is way more impactful than it is in basketball. I mean, what the hell was Tyronn Lue going to tell LeBron James to go do? Like, you know what? No. Get these guys on the floor with me and just let me go.
I don't know how much you've read about the Rodgers situation, but it was pretty similar. I mean, Rodgers was basically just changing calls in the huddle.
Oh, was he
all
really?
the time, consistently.
So whatever McCarthy had picked, he was going, I like this better.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
That's a bit of a slippery slope as well, too. But again, maybe things are different now.
Yeah, we'll
Clearly
see.
they are.
Well, are they different now? Hey, there were Boomer Esiason called plays at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, but he didn't go against
Kelly,
but he didn't go against
Manning.
Sam Weich's play calls.
Yeah, you want to know why? Because White is smart enough to know, like, this guy knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's a combination of Rodgers is Rodgers. Rodgers just got paid, so the ego's bigger, rightfully so.
Sure.
Right? I mean, he's got a lot to hold up now, and a lot to sort of, he's got one Super Bowl. This is a mess of a career for him. He's a great quarterback in a great football town, and he's got one Super Bowl to show for it. So there's a lot of pressure for his next 4 years, and it was going south with McCarthy. So I think there's been a lot said about the in-season firing. I don't know where you guys stand on that, but I think
he was fired before the
better.
season started.
Yeah. I have no problem. If they were going
extended
if they had decided they were going to fire him, then get rid of him now. What's the sense of keeping him around?
No, but what I'm saying is Aaron Rodgers, does he sign that contract without expressing his saying, hey, this goes south to get rid of this guy, right?
Yeah, at any point
he
in
does
time.
not.
At any point
right?
in time.
Yeah.
He's going to have some say in this, and I just hope there's a little bit more transparency when it comes to adding weapons this February, because there's going to be, like I said, a need in a lot of places, and who knows better than him and maybe Alex Van Pelt.
Can I pick the team for McCarthy?
Let's do it.
How about the Jets?
Yeah, I thought so too.
Not the Browns?
No.
Jets.
Because there's a relationship with Dorsey, the GM, and McCarthy from the Green Bay days.
I think the Browns are going to land Harbaugh.
Well, the Harbaugh's the other one. Yeah.
I think Harbaugh makes
got
a lot
Ohio
of sense
roots.
there. Yeah.
What about Urban Meyer?
I actually think he's done. Done.
Really?
I actually think Urban Meyer's done. He doesn't look healthy on the sideline.
Okay.
He hasn't for a few years for me now, and I think
Does he walk away if the controversy from the assistant coach earlier in the year doesn't happen at Ohio State?
Urban Meyer?
Yeah.
He's officially announced he's going to retire.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
he has. But I'm saying, does that happen without?
Sure.
I mean, I don't think we're kidding ourselves to say that his retirement is also related to some either quid pro quo
For sure.
or understanding that your time is done here. You either step away or we're going to have to fire you at some point because you played enough of a role in this going bad that you have to take the hit for it.
I think that's the point I was trying to make is I actually think he's really not healthy and was considering this no matter what, and then obviously that all pushed it to the forefront. But I really do think he's done, and definitely done for the NFL. I can't see that transition happening at all.
Yeah, and I think what you mean by healthy, like I don't need this crap.
Well, that
right.
Well, and he's
also
had health
brain
issues
surgery,
too.
right?
He's had health issues. That's why he left Florida. So yeah.
But in terms of coaches who could jump,
I forgot about
I
that
do
part.
think Lincoln Riley makes the jump somewhere. A lot of people think Green Bay. To me, that is a lot to ask.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants to work with a young rookie.
Can you imagine having to start over from? I mean,
no.
Goodness gracious.
That makes no sense to me.
Baker
Mayfield working with Baker in Cleveland makes much more sense if you're going to do that than Green Bay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we do know this. McCarthy's going to be a head coach again.
No question, and a good one. He's a good
National
coach.
Football League, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in Green Bay. All right, let's move on to hockey here, and we'll get to some tweet questions here coming up too.
Yeah.
But William Nylander, and I like how Andrew Brandt, right? The deadline spur actions and shocking Nylander signs at the deadline.
40 minutes to go, I think it was. Something like that.
Yeah. They had enough time to the NHL still faxes. You still have to fax stuff in here.
God, didn't they learn?
My gosh, guys! Like,
let's just preface this, by the way.
You can get a mortgage on your phone, but the NHL still has to fax.
I will tell you. I don't know if I ever told you this. So on tender offer day, right? So there's a deadline to tender offers to your draft picks, your restricted free agents, and it all happens at once. And you may recall years ago, the Buffalo...
there was a player that they lost because they didn't get it in time.
Yeah, centerman, and why the hell can't I think of his name?
He bounced around the league for a little while.
Became
Michael something or other.
Zigomanis,
thank you.
The fax didn't go through in time, or there was a paper
I was going to say
jam.
they were out of paper.
No, there was something... No, seriously, there was some paper jam in the faxing or something that you'd be like, how the hell... And I was at talk shows at the time, ripped them, right? Everybody ripped them for it. And then I saw the process, and I'm like, I get it now. Like, this is archaic that they have to fax these things in. but all the agents wait to the deadline.
Yeah.
Legal contracts, they got to be reviewed by the attorney, signed by both parties, faxed into the league office. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is how it's done. So anyways, they had to leave time to make sure that stuff got through. Anyhow, 6 years, $45 million for William Nylander, which comes out to 7.5, but it's a little different, isn't it?
Yeah, let's just preface real quick. He was a restricted free agent in Toronto, basically holding out Le'Veon Bell style, right? Didn't want to,
he wanted
give
$8
in.
million. Right?
He wanted $8. Toronto wanted to give him about $6 from what we heard, and he held out for what? Almost 3 months of the season, 2.5 months of the season here. So it was significant. The deadline was this past week for him to sign a contract, or he had to basically sit out the entire 2018 season. Came down to the last hour, as we sort of mentioned right there. Comes out to about $7.5 million per year, except because it's in the middle of the season, of course, there's some complicated math involved, and it actually benefits Toronto quite a bit. I mean, quite a bit.
Yeah, it does.
They were able to structure this basically, instead of being $7.5 million over the length of the contract, which every other hockey contract is going to be, basically just the average of the years divided by the value. They front loaded this thing, so it's $10.2 million in 2018 in terms of the cap, and then $6.9 the rest of the way. So a guy who they thought was worth $7.5 is only going to cost $6.9 for the next 5 seasons in Toronto, which is a big deal because they've got a mess coming up here in the next 18 months. Just a mess.
You've got Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, both scheduled to be restricted free agents.
2 gigantically elite players.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you also have Jake Gardner, right, who's
top
UFA, right, coming up. And so they did the smart thing, I think, by getting this done with Nylander. He's a good player.
Yeah.
And
so who are they willing to give up then? Because would you have walked away from Nylander in order to keep the other guys?
Clearly, no.
Can they keep them all, Kevin? I mean, I did some research here. I did some breakdowns. I probably did too much.
They can if they bridge Marner.
Okay.
Matthews, you're locking up. Yeah. If I'm the Maple Leafs, I'm keeping Matthews and Tavares and Nylander as my 3 offensive guys. You've got to sign at least Gardner in the back end. I still think they need another piece back.
I think the rest of their roster is garbage.
And I want Marner, but it's tough to pay.
It's a little small, undersized, right?
Because you don't want to become the Chicago Blackhawks, right?
Yeah,
and
that's where they are.
And you actually haven't won.
How much of this is we think we can win in the next year or two, so let's go for it, and then we'll worry about it later? Got to be a lot of that is in this, right?
Yes,
especially since they're at the top of the league right now. So I would imagine. Look, Marner just seems to be the glue, though. That's all I keep thinking.
He's
when
a
I
heck
look
of
at
a player.
He just seems to be the glue that he's on the Tavares line right now. I mean, he's the one setting up Johnny Tavares at $11 million a year right now. Are you going to take that away from Tavares? I don't think Nylander can be that kind of player, even though statistically those two match
Well,
up.
here's the thing with the Nylander contract. You can move it.
Okay.
You can move that contract.
This is somewhere I wanted to go.
So if, depending upon what you can get Matthews and Marner for,
yes.
And, what they did, Tavares, Matthews, Marner could be your 3, and you can move Nylander for a defenseman.
I'll say this. I did some valuations on these guys last night just to prep for this because that was what I wanted to have happen.
I didn't look at your valuations.
In my head.
Can I tell you what I think they're worth?
Go ahead.
Matthews is $10 million.
Okay.
Easy.
Okay.
Easy. You may have to pay him 11 to pay him the same as Tavares. I don't think you can go 12. I think that 12.5 is going to hurt McDavid. Hurt the Edmonton Oilers, which, boy, that team's...
Yep.
Mitch Marner, you're paying him more than you're paying Nylander. I think he's worth more than Nylander. So I would pay Matthews 10. I would pay Marner... Gosh, you probably got to pay him 8.
Okay.
You probably got to pay him 8.
All right. Here.
Yeah.
So
and the cap's going up to 83. Bettman just announced 83 million.
Which
so
isn't a lot.
It's not going up a lot. It's $4 million, but they may have the escalator clause to do another 5%, so that could go up to $6 million.
Well, you're dead on. I mean, you're dead on. I put him, the calculations, and then myself personally put him in between Eichel and Tavares. So 10.5 for Matthews.
Yeah, he's off. If he were born a month earlier, he would have been the second. He might have been number 1. It would have been interesting between McDavid and Matthews, which one went number 1 overall.
If they're
Eichel would not have been 2. Eichel would not have been 2.
I agree with
he
that.
He would have been 3.
But Marner to me is the interesting one, and you sort of alluded to it. statistically between him and Nylander, it's almost identical. It's almost identical the way these two perform in terms of points per game, assists, everything, and ice time. So I put Marner right at the 7.5 that Nylander actually signed for. Right? I mean, they're not going to get the cap credit they got with the Nylander situation, but Marner's worth 7.5, probably 8 with a higher cap, like you discussed. So I can't see all 4 of these guys living on this roster. They need help defensively. There's other pieces to this puzzle. Even though they're smaller in terms of dollars, you still got to make it all work under $83 million right now, and that's a lot to ask for Toronto next year. And I'm not even sure we can look 3 to 4 years down the road, right? I mean, are we talking 8-year deals for these guys? By the way, because that's a whole nother enchilada that you've heard me complain about a million times on this podcast.
Well, and that's why I brought up bridge deal. Like you could do it differently.
It doesn't affect the cap though.
Doesn't. Well,
still got to pay Marner 7.5 or 8, right? Whether it's for 2 or 6.
You could pay him more short term.
Could.
Right? 2 for 20.
Could. That hurts your cap though.
That hurts your cap.
That hurts your cap.
Hurts your cap.
So if you're trying to fit this in for 19, I do think your initial point was the right point. I think that they're going to find out over the next 5 months, when all these guys are on the ice together, and they'll be juggling lines to see what they have. I think Marner becomes too important to move. I think he is. If he's this important to Tavares, he's definitely this important to Matthews, who is the longer-term piece here. And I just think Nylander at 6'9", at the $6.9 million cap hit, that's very movable, especially if he's playing to the capacity that Marner can right now.
The one thing I'll say about Marner with Tavares, there's a lot of guys who've played great with John Tavares.
That's right.
So
yeah, but
it's the same thing with Jeff Skinner in Buffalo playing with Eichel. And he's in a contract year. A lot of guys play great with Eichel.
That's right.
So,
and I will say this, by the way, Skinner's a name to bring up here in this conversation, because if you're Toronto and you're thinking about this right now, you got to get these deals done before Skinner signs, because Skinner might score 50 goals this year, and if he scores 50 goals, he's going to be overpaid to the bone, and you can't have Marner and Matthews being compared to the production of Jeff Skinner, even though he's a winger right now. You can't have that. You can't have him raising the bar, because what's going to happen? In fact, you can't even get yourself to free agency with these guys.
No.
You can't even let it get there, because you know what's going to happen. You've been in this league. There's going to be a team that calls another team and says, we're both going out there and we're going to throw massive offer sheets at these guys.
Well, and
it's going to happen.
If you don't see offer sheets often in the NHL. You
don't see players like this, though.
That's correct, because there's like this gentleman's agreement where, hey, we're not going to screw you, you're not going to screw me. There's been a couple of offer sheets that have been done. Thomas Vanek and
Matthews is better.
I want to say Seth Jones got offer sheeted.
It was a Montreal guy.
Might have been Forsberg, Vanek.
There's been a few for sure,
but there's only been a couple.
But you have to believe that at least Matthews, maybe Marner too, just to drive the price up.
Matthews for sure,
Matthews
is worth it.
Yeah,
if you have to give it 5 first-round draft picks,
somebody's going $12 million on Matthews, right? Just to do it.
The Coyotes should. He's from there.
Yeah. So it's going to be to the point where if you don't lock him in at 10 and a half, in the next couple of months, somebody's going to do it way higher for you.
If I'm, it all depends if Austin Matthews wants to play in Toronto.
Come on.
He's he's American.
Yeah.
If he wants to go out west where he's from.
Do you think he doesn't like being in Tavares' shadow right now? Is there anything to that? Or do you think the relationship works?
I think John Tavares is a hell of a guy to play with.
I do too.
I think, he's in the mecca of hockey, Toronto.
It's just crazy to see Austin Matthews as a second-line center right
now
in hockey.
Well, correct. But I'm just saying, when it comes down to money, if he can get 12 a year from another team.
I don't think Toronto can meet him to the $11 million that Tavares gets, but there are a dozen teams that we go over 11.
If they want to win, they can't.
That's right.
They can, but then all of a sudden you're Chicago. And down the road.
Edmonton. You're Pittsburgh 5 years later.
Right.
That's where we are. That's where those teams are. You can do it for a year or two, but man, it dies quickly. All
right. We have some it's going to be fun to watch to see what they get. Mm-hmm. By the way, it's like a trade getting Nylander in.
Yeah, and
for Toronto.
Just something we'll talk about down the road. The expansion to Seattle is official.
Yeah.
So the
NHL
is going to add another team and more revenues into the league, and then more decisions about can Seattle pull off what Vegas did and manipulate the expansion draft to the point that they did. Well, that'll be a future conversation.
Do you think that's going to happen that way again?
No way.
No way.
No way.
Are you kidding me? Every GM's like, we can't let that happen again. Every GM that wasn't Las Vegas, and wow, we look terrible because of that.
But Vegas did take a lot of crap off their hands in the course of that as well, too. So, if you're out for yourself, it might happen again.
All right, a couple of user questions to finish this thing off. We've been all over the place here today, by the way. I like
That's
this.
good, though.
I like not sticking to one sport. Andre Piper, at Andre Piper 89.
Is that Roddy Piper's kid?
Well, let's just say it is. It's good.
One of my
it's good
favorite,
TV.
By the way, it's one of my favorite all-time in-studio interviews, Roddy Piper.
Really?
Oh, my gosh. He was awesome.
Nice.
Had him for a full
In
hour.
what capacity did you interview him?
Morning radio show.
Nice.
Yeah, and then real quick after the show, my co-host, Bob Gone, who you know, Paul, we're taking a picture, which, damn, if I wish I had the photo, right? This is so long ago, like cameras were not on cell phones for the most part. Yeah, so I was taking on a regular camera. But anyways, Bobby goes to Roddy Piper. He says, hey, Roddy, why don't you give me a chop? You know, the chops you used to do. He's like, no, Bobby, no, I don't want to do it, Bobby. I'm shaking my head like Piper. He's like, no. And then all of a sudden he just hauls off and whacks Bob. Like unexpected, and Bob just goes,
could you hear it through the radio?
Oh my!
Because that's the best
It
part.
wasn't even on the radio. It was just off, like we're just taking a photo, right? He's like, nah, Bobby, no, Bobby. Bam! And hammers him right across the chest with a backhand chop. And you could hear it go like that. And I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. Anyways, Piper's question.
Andre Roddy Piper. Here for you guys. I'm going to let you guys take this. Who will be the next quarterback to get paid more money than Aaron Rodgers? Who's next?
Who? That's a good question. Goff, Wentz would be two guys that jump to mind. I'm trying to think of young up and coming quarterbacks who haven't been paid yet.
You think Goff gets $30 million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? They're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Why not?
I wonder. I wonder how the Rams handle the quarterback position.
You think because McVay's so smart
Yeah.
that he'll think it's interchangeable?
I'm starting to lean in that direction. I'm starting to lean that every single position on that offense is interchangeable outside of the offensive line.
I'm going to say Pat Mahomes.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in with a guy earlier than that. I think it's gonna be Russell Wilson.
He's been paid once already, but you think in the net he'll get paid? He's having a great year.
He's doing so much more than people understand what he's doing. That team was gutted. That team was absolutely destroyed over the last 2 years in terms of the roster. And he has put them on their back. He's established a running game just because of his
They lead the NFL
presence.
in rushing.
They're going to make the playoffs, which is unfathomable.
Right.
They were a 2 to 3 win team for me coming into this year. So he's done everything they've asked him to do and more. I'm not sure. How do you let him go at this point? I mean, 3 weeks ago on this podcast, I said I was trading him to the Giants. Yeah,
Right.
so which any team would be, a blessing to have him right now. But he's going to get $30 million plus. I'm not sure he exceeds Rodgers in terms of the guarantees and all that.
What's the time frame? When does he need to get that?
Next year is his last year of the contract.
Okay.
So you're going to hear it this
So it'll come
January.
up before Goff and Wentz then.
It's going to come up in the next 2-3 months here.
All right.
And especially
and Mahomes is still 3 years away from needing a new deal too.
I'll say this, Joe Flacco lovers out there, if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan right now, you better hope you don't win the Super Bowl. Because if he wins the Super Bowl with this team and he needs money, good gracious, you're going to be talking major money.
As we learned last week in the podcast, he's in a non-state income tax state.
That's right.
In Washington.
That's the one we didn't know. Yeah,
we didn't
did not
know
that
Washington, so he's fine.
He's not leaving.
He doesn't need $30 million, so he'll get paid
He's
less.
not going to New York.
No, why?
Pat Shurmur's Giants.
You kidding me? That
No
would
way.
be foolish. He likes rain and Starbucks. He's staying in Seattle.
And fish, salmon, big salmon guy.
Salmon.
All right, ready? Let's do this. Let's stay on this track with football. And the next question is from Taylor Holmes. Is the next CBA going to get us closer to guaranteed contracts in the NFL?
Boy, I think the owners are going to push back hard on it. The players are going to push hard on their end as well, too. It's just the nature of the sport and its higher rate of injury that means the NFL owners are not going to want to be on the hook for guys who aren't going to be able to play anymore.
That's why I think there'll be a percentage guaranteed, but not the entire contract guaranteed. I could see
that'll be your compromise.
A minimum.
I could see 20% guaranteed of any contract sign, or 25%. No, guaranteed, meaning
Minimum guarantee.
Yeah, minimum
has to be at least 20%.
Yeah, I'd say minimum guarantee.
Never fully guaranteed. We're never going to get
that. Seems to be a trade. That seems to be a trade-off to me. To right now you could take the guaranteed money. Well, build in the guaranteed money. So if I were owner, I'd want to guarantee part of that salary instead of having to keep throwing money right at the beginning out.
Well, I think Paul, you hit the nail on the head there. There's two names we have to bring up here, right? Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whose team is barely in the playoffs right now.
I'm not sure they're going to make it.
Right.
And statistically, he's not much better than Case Keenum.
Nope.
By any degree.
And you're talking all say that saw that
you're talking
coming?
$2 million guaranteed versus $84 million guaranteed.
Yep.
So, and then Alex Smith.
Right.
That's the other end of the spectrum, right?
Right.
Tons of guaranteed.
Boy,
and to give up a starting cornerback to get him.
How much trouble are the Redskins in right now?
They're
in a playoff
there's a lot of ways
right now
to ask that question.
They're in big, big trouble.
Tell me you weren't rooting for Mark Sanchez, though.
Yeah,
Seriously,
I have no reason
on.
not to root for Mark Sanchez.
I'm rooting for Adrian Peterson on that team right now. There is no better story right now in football than Adrian Peterson. That is fun. This guy's a mid-30s guy, and he outran everybody on that 90-yard touchdown yesterday.
know.
He outran everybody. That's fun.
He needs to get with the times, though, when it comes to child discipline.
Yeah,
Well, you can leave that out of this conversation.
Okay.
He's making $1 million, and he's worth every dollar of it right now.
Yeah, that run was incredible.
It's incredible that
Yeah.
he's able to pull away at that age.
Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Highest earning running back of all time. $99.2 million.
Really?
Highest earning of all time.
Wow. All right, you got one more?
Who's second, by the way? Second in the earnings. Running backs
I haven't
all
looked.
time.
I haven't looked in a
I
bit.
didn't mean to put you on the
I
spot.
believe it was Edger and James for a long time.
Really?
It might be Lynch now. It might be Marshawn Lynch.
How about Frank Gore?
I'm going to look right. Oh, it is Gore. Hold on.
It's got to be Gore.
I'm bringing it up. We got
just
time.
because of
We got
longevity.
time. We got time.
Right.
Just because of longevity.
Frank Gore, that's also remarkable. The fact
Yes.
that
Just
he's
as remarkable.
Right? I mean, what is he, 34 years old?
Great.
It is. That is remarkable.
Frank Gore, number
Frank
2.
Gore.
at
Okay.
$60 million. He's $39 million behind Adrian Peterson. And then,
Because he's always been really, really good, but never quote unquote great.
Yeah.
I don't know. He had some great years with the Niners and the Colts.
Crazy.
All right, you got one more question
playing in
left,
Miami, nobody knows.
or are we done for the day here?
Real quick, Dolphins fans, stay with those throwback uniforms.
Love
They're
them.
so much
Love,
better
love,
than
love 'em.
the
Yep.
new flipper.
Last question. Who will be the first major MLB free agent to fall? Who gets signed first? Sounds like Corbin has been talking to people. Harper really hasn't gotten involved yet, even though
You feel like everybody's waiting for Harper, don't you? I mean, doesn't Harper set the market?
I would think in terms of the position players, yeah, people are probably going to wait to see. But is Harper waiting for somebody else?
Probably.
Right? Isn't it yin and yang with Scott Boras?
Right, probably.
I do think Corbin probably locks in with the Yankees in the next day
I was
or
going to
two.
say it'd be the third baseman from the Brewers there.
Moose?
Moose.
Going out there on Moose?
I'm going Moose.
I mean, the Braves did lock in Donaldson. That's a pretty big piece. That's a pretty good get for them in terms of a one-year deal with their new starting third baseman. I do think Patrick Corbin is a Yankee by the end of this week, though, and that is scary times for the American League.
when do you think Harper signs?
It's going to be late, right?
Yes,
it's
I
going to be
agree.
calculated. There's going to be some pomp and circumstance to it.
I think mid,
Especially if it's the Dodgers. Man, did you hear the Dodgers are involved now?
Are they really?
Magic
Wow.
wants some Harper. Magic wants him some Harper. I can't even fathom.
West Coast guy too, Vegas guy. So
The Mets should just fold it in at that point. Just a round back into form here.
All right.
good stuff.
yeah.
I like hitting on all kinds of different sports. A lot of it is dictated by the news of the week, but that's what's fun about all this. And it was cool. We spent a lot of time talking baseball, football, hockey.
Yeah, let's
and
talk
that's
Warriors soon, guys. By the way, because it's getting fun. It's getting
Golden
ugly.
State, right.
It's getting
Yeah,
ugly in
ugly
Golden
fun.
State. Yeah.
I thought you want to
fun.
talk about the basketball team I coach. We are the Warriors.
No, the
Yeah.
one that
Not
matters.
until you can start making layups.
Well, I'm not playing, but yes. Hey, listen,
Coaching,
we are
layups.
the exact opposite of the Golden State Warriors. We are a defensive shutdown team. Seriously, the problem was we also shut ourselves down.
I think he needs an
defensively.
analytics department, Mike.
That's like the kid in gym who could run really fast, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's what that is.
We're not that team either. Okay, but we're 3-1, which is great. All right, that's going to do it for the SpotTrack.com podcast. Couple things. Make sure you check out the premium section, ad-free experience, and even more goodies. Total Sum podcast and more from Mike for premium experience. Subscribe to that on SpotTrack.com. Make sure you give us a rating on iTunes and Spotify and wherever else that you listen to this podcast. Tell your friends about this podcast, too. I saw Richard Deitch, who does a media column, say, hey, what are the best podcasts, sports podcasts you listen to out there? None of you none of you, I'm not pointing at you two, none of you tweeted back at him. All right, so let him and let everybody else know about this podcast. We talk about the contracts in sports and drip our opinions in there too. All right, with that said, everybody have a great week. We will talk to you next week. For Mike Giannetti, the founder of SpotTrack.com, and Paul Peck, I'm Kevin Sylvester. Thanks for listening to the SpotTrack.com podcast.